Hello, how's everyone out there doing? Welcome to the very first pep talk. This pep talk will be a teacher concept introduction. The cool thing about these pep talks, when you're watching them on YouTube, you could pause at any point in time. You can go back and rewatch it as many times as you need. You could pause on each graphic so you can get a better look. So it should be helpful because in class, sometimes you are not paying attention or the teacher's covering a concept very quickly or you're absent so you miss the concept or the topic that's being covered. So the first graphic lists the basic science process skills. We are all familiar with these by now: observing, classifying, measuring, and using numbers, making inferences, predicting, and communicating. The next graphic breaks it into two categories: the basic and the integrated. You can read those on your own and look over those. I'm not going to read them all to you. The following graphic, and I know this one's quite busy and might be a little hard to read. This is from the National Science Foundation. This is a listing of the process skills in 5 different categories: acquisition, organization, creativity, manipulative, and communicative. So, what skill are we focusing on today? We're going to briefly talk about classification. Classification. This graphic might help you visualize classification. So, we kind of just have a mess on one side and we have organization on the other side. So, what's the definition of classification? Well, in terms of biology, we can say it's the arrangement of animals, plants, and other forms of life into taxonomic groups or categories based on similar features. So, with all that being said, let's talk about a few things. The reason I'm doing this classification video is because we want to talk about classification of trees and types of trees and leaf identification. So, let's first get familiar with what a native species is. A native species would be anything that's been found in an area throughout history. Other words like endemic and indigenous are also used for native species. So we could be talking about animals or plants or any other living thing that has been traditionally found in an area. That is what a native species is. The opposite of that would be the category of non-native species. A non-native species would be a living thing that's been introduced to an area where it has not existed before. And other words such as invasive or exotic are sometimes used for non-native species. Now, when it comes to identifying trees and leaves, there are so many different graphics and so many different websites and so many different books we can look at. I tried to find a graphic that was fairly simple to understand. When we look at a leaf, and these are individual leaves, sometimes a single leaf may actually have multiple small leaflets on it. But as we look at these leaves, really the ones we want to focus on are the first one. It says lacerate, which is like the word meaning cut. But a lot of times you'll hear the word lobed or see the word lobed because it has deep lobes. The next one, we see teeth on it. So the word serranate or rounded tooth, and then the next one is serrate, which is also tooth, like a serrated knife that you would cut bread. We'll often see the word entire or smooth, which means the leaf is smooth around the edges, so it doesn't have any little teeth, serrations, lobes, lacerations. It is a smooth leaf. And the last one on this graphic is undulate, and that's another word for basically wavy. If something is undulating, it's in a wavy motion, like the waves of the ocean. They're undulating. So those are kind of some of the basic leaf margin shapes that we need to be aware of. So here's a good example. These leaves are deeply lobed. And as you can see, some of you might recognize what this leaf actually is, or the tree actually that it's from. But as you see the back side of the leaf, you'll see that it is silverish. So this is a silver maple. And going back to the idea of native species, the silver maple is a native species to Pennsylvania. Now, as far as invasive goes, this tree pictured at the corner of this house is called a tree of heaven. This tree is considered an invasive species. It is not native to North America, and obviously not native to Pennsylvania. So, in summary, classification involves organizing things by similarities into groups. If something is native, it has been found in an area. Also, the words endemic and indigenous are used. If something is non-native, sometimes the words invasive or exotic are used, and so that's something that's been introduced. And then leaf margins. When we see the words entire, we mean the entire leaf is smooth. Sometimes we'll see teeth, or sometimes we could see lobes. So those are the real basics of classification when it comes to leaf and tree identification. Thanks for watching. Hopefully now we can get outside or get our hands on some leaves and do some classification. Thanks for watching.